Donald Trump has signed the first phase, or what he's referring to as phase 1 of his trade deal with China. The deal will ease tensions and this ongoing trade war between the United States and China, but that's pretty much all it really accomplishes for now. There are other little things which I'll mention in a moment, but it's really more of a trade truce than an actual deal that fundamentally changes our trading relationship with China. Now, according to Jen Kirby over at Vox, China has agreed to make purchases of about $200 billion worth of US goods over a 2-year period, including almost doubling its agricultural purchases to $40 billion. China also made concessions on intellectual property, currency, and access to financial services, and it's promised to halt the practice of forcing companies to turn over their technology. So there's great concessions there, but as we know, it's only for about 2 years when it comes to the purchase of US goods. And in the past, China has reneged on what they have promised when it comes to dealing with Donald Trump. There was supposed to be a signed trade deal late last year, but China did renege. And so again, I'm glad that there's a truce for the moment, but farmers who have been hurt by Donald Trump's trade war with China don't seem to be impressed by this. But in calling this phase 1, the Trump administration is saying, oh, don't worry, we're not done yet. But it's also important to note that Trump is hinting that he's not gonna really focus on phase 2 until after the 2020 election. And so it's kind of like his way of saying, yeah, you wanna vote for me, because if you don't, who knows what's gonna happen with this trade deal. It's kind of pathetic.
You might just be stuck with this trade war that I've created for no reason, that's doing untold economic harm to a number of different industries. Yeah, this is another one of those great victories where he douses the flames of the house that he set on fire. Yay, very presidential. Some of it sounds okay. Look, I'm not an expert in international trade. I feel comfortable admitting that because Donald Trump isn't either. I don't even understand what most of what do you mean you're gonna do $200 billion worth of purchases? It's driven by supply and demand. What do you mean you're gonna? Do your people need it? Do your people want it?
Well,
I understand it's a different government. I understand it's a different government setup.
Right,
but
it's a good question. It's a very good question. So let me answer that for you. So of course, Donald Trump is gonna be boastful about this, and he's gonna tout his negotiating skills. But the products that China has agreed to purchase include pork. That's not really all that impressive when you consider that China had this swine flu situation, and it wiped out their pork supply. And so they were already looking for a country to import pork products from. So that is part of the equation here. Now look, Donald Trump had leverage because China needs pork. But still, it's good for our pork producers, I guess.
Yeah, and look, to throw it back to a story we reported on a couple of weeks ago, the fact that Trump is lightening the regulations on the safety inspections at pork plants means that most American pork is gonna have a lot more pig poop and pig genitals and hair and things, and I mean, we're gonna do our job to make sure that people know what they're eating, so the domestic market for that pork is probably gonna go down. It's gonna have to be sold somewhere, so thankfully he's found a place for us to ship our mixed pork and poop.
Oh God, it's disgusting.
Thank you, China, for taking that hair and genitals off our hands.
So what has the United States agreed to do?
I know that's uncomfortable, sorry, but that's what they're doing. It's not sexy, I guess, in a weird way. I mean.
As for the United States, it canceled additional tariffs on about $160 billion of Chinese goods that were originally slated to go into effect in December of 2019. It will also cut in half tariffs on $110 billion in goods introduced in September, but keep existing 25% tariffs on $250, I'm guessing, billion in Chinese products. So duties will remain on some $360 billion in Chinese goods. Chinese retaliatory tariffs on $100 billion in US products will also stay in place. So look, I'm giving you all these details to really demonstrate that this is not a giant deal. That's the reason why Trump is referring to it as phase 1. if anything, this has helped to kind of like settle the markets a little bit, because the markets do react to this trade war.
Yeah.
And I think that this trade truce is better than having no truce at all, but it doesn't really accomplish the fundamental changes that the Trump administration was demanding.
Yeah, and if you're one of the many industries that were hurt by this trade war, the knowledge that going forward for several more years, you're still gonna have to deal with that. I guess you're happy for the pork manufacturers, but it doesn't help you if you're, in solar cells and certain types of other agricultural products, things like that. So that's true. And this is the sort of deal you get from someone like Donald Trump, who fundamentally doesn't understand much about international trade. He talks about the trade balance between our two countries as if it's a representation of who's winning and who's losing, rather than a representation of the very different nature of our economies. He has always misunderstood what that actually represents. And so obligating them to purchase, X number of dollars, he sees that as a net win, rather than actually diving down and seeing how is this affecting different industries.
Right, exactly. And the damage that's been done can't just simply be reversed, because the countries that we've done trade with, China particularly, have forged different relationships internationally in order to make up for what they're losing out on in the trade relationship with the United States. So Mexico is, developing relationships with countries that we've started trade wars with. And so do you think that as soon as, these negotiations are settled, China's just gonna tell other countries, see you later, we're done with you? No, it's really difficult for a lot of these soybean farmers. And I'm not talking about giant factory farms. I'm talking about, independent soybean farmers who have been hurt. Bankruptcies for farmers have gone through the roof under the Trump administration. So they're frustrated, they're angry, they have good reason to be. And it's important to know these facts as Donald Trump uses this trade truce as part of his campaign to refer to it as a success. It's really not.
Yeah. TYT is all about challenging and disrupting the status quo, and so is Aspiration. Aspiration does not invest your money into fossil fuel businesses that harm our planet, such as pipelines and oil drilling. Instead, you'll be able to fight climate change with tools like AIM, the Aspiration Impact Measurement, and Planet Protection. They also don't hit you with outrageous fees for you to access your own money. You can even earn cash back and get free ATM uses up to 5 times a month. Head to aspiration.com/TYT to learn more. For a limited time, get 30 days of free TYT membership when you sign up.